has an interesting misconception about the female body. Milk. For years, he assumed that they were always full. Milk everywhere, invisible under dresses, impossibly close, as he swayed for balance in buses, heating up at the beach inside spandex bikinis, sloshing a little with sudden motion. One of those things in life you just get used to. No doubt women spoke of it privately to each other in complicated female code, on days when it bothered them, if it bothered them. So that all around him, without his ever hearing, milk speech blossomed in lovely euphemism. Not until he moved in with his second sweetheart did he figure it out. He thought it best not to tell her. Now he knows they're mostly empties. They don't feel any different to the touch. He can't decide if he is disappointed or if he is, whose error this should be. I wrote a series of letters of address, poems of address. When I was in the post office one time, I saw this little complaint card that you could send to the postmaster. So I started writing all these poems in the voices of different people who had complaints to the postmaster. Dear Postmaster, my mailbox is still full of bees, and I've not gotten any letters since September 6th, 1979. How do you think it feels to live with pests the size of pullets and a noise like stripped electrical wires in high wind? Maybe pretty soon I'll dig up the mailbox, load it into my pickup, and release the hive right here inside the P.O. It would be exactly like at Revival when they cast out devils, except it would be the opposite. It's true I don't have a civil service education like certain individuals, but I do know this. Once you've been chased by a fiery, swooping cloud, singing your name with 1,000 voices, you never stop running, whether you're running or not. This is a different voice, different writer. Dear Postmaster, when my bathtub drain backed up, not everyone who emerged from it had actually drowned. Some had simply succumbed to old age, such as the tiny shrunken mermaid covered with calcified scales, brittle as coral sequins faded from brilliant cobalt to washed out slate. And there were those who had apparently died on the job, a bishop, Jesuit, I believe, and a flotilla of uniformed postal workers. Some, however, were quite alive, such as the diva still cranking out one of the more difficult passages from the opening scene of Lucia de Lammermoor, and the small crowd of Dutch peasants swept away in the dance mania of 1374, still spinning and bobbing. I've heard tales of odd things dropping from above, mackerels, toads, dimes, etc., not to mention the sky itself, which, like a child trying not to burst into tears, leaks and trickles in equal proportion to the extent it strains to hold itself together. But I'd never imagined the underworld to be quite so sloppy. Well, it was clear that, as always, it had fallen upon me to clean up messes I'd had no part in creating. So I wrapped the mermaid in blue gauze and buried her in my garden. I felt so helpless. She was light as the best doll. The bishop I shipped to Vatican City at no small cost to myself, I might add. I sent the diva to the Met and the peasants to Mardi Gras. The postal workers, however, I am keeping on shaved ice in my cellar. Please send someone by for them as soon as possible. It makes me not a little uneasy to think of them all alone together in the dark, their blue caps covering their faces. Back in the day, it used to be that what we had in common, what groups would have in common, is we all feared that the Huns would sweep down from the north, or that our common crop would fail, or whatever. Now we're all living in kind of social niches, and our lives are very scattered and fragmented. About the only thing we have in common is that we're always tired all the time. So I wrote a bunch of poems about your fatigue, the general use fatigue. This is, let's see. Your fatigue remembers high school. You wintered under the weight of teachers' voices, your head heavy, your spine gently curved. How easy it was to slip down toward the cool desk, to rest your forehead and folded arms on the swirling, varnished surface that had long since lost the scent of wood, a scent of anything but Ajax. Glass-like, except where other students had scratched their names with pen point, slicing in the date, even as that day fell back and away from them as the train station wall falls back the instant you lurch forward into smoothness. And weren't the teachers gracious to allow such privacy? They knew you were catching from them adulthood, that exhaustion. In return, you were careful to not abuse their courtesy, to not sink down too often, and when you did, to surface after a while. But how good it was to rest under those voices, to breathe the clean scent of your own sleeves in the intimate dark, where fields of silences unfurled around you, where at the front of the classroom sentences floated by, one after the other, like low-flying birds calling out in their own language. So that's teenage fatigue. This is adult fatigue, when you realize you're never going to be able to read everything that you want to read. Your fatigue falls behind the unholy paradox. The ratio between the number of unread books and the number of books read by any living reader is even higher than the ratio between the number of unwritten books and the number of existing books, which is itself always higher than or equivalent to the ratio between the number of unborn writers to the number of living readers. And I can't read it, but I've got the formula with the colons and the greater than, less than.